Christopher Nolan is a generational defining director, and in my own humble opinion, one of the best to ever do it. I do truly believe that one day he will be known as one of the greats, if he isn't already. Likely best known for directing the Dark Knight trilogy, he has also given us some of cinema's most unique experiences as well. This past weekend, he released his 12th feature film, Oppenheimer, a historical drama centered on J. Robert Oppenheimer, the scientist tasked with leading the creation of the atom bomb. So how does this compare to the rest of his filmography? Well folks, that's what I aim to answer today. Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen, and movie lovers of all kind. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today, I am going to be ranking all 12 of director Christopher Nolan's movies. As always, this list is 110% subjective, which is why it is oh so important for you to leave your own ranking down in the comments below. I'd also like to let you know that I have an entire playlist dedicated to all of my ranking videos, so if movie rankings are your thing, then be sure to check that out and I guarantee you'll find something you like. And so without further ado, let's hop right into things. Number 12, Following. Unfortunately, this one sort of just ends up here by default, because it is by no means at all a bad or even mediocre movie. In fact, it's pretty darn good. This was Nolan's very first feature film, if you can even really call it that. It's fairly low budget, pretty amateurish, and only runs about an hour and 10 minutes long. If you, by some chance, are not familiar with any of Nolan's work, I wouldn't say it's best to start from the very beginning. I'd say that this film is more so reserved for hardcore movie buffs or Nolan purists. If you'd like to check it out, by all means, I am not in any way, shape, or form trying to gatekeep Nolan's work. Just make sure to keep your expectations in check. If you're familiar with The Dark Knight, Inception, or Interstellar, don't go into this movie expecting that, because that it is not. Number 11, Insomnia. The thing with Insomnia is that it falls under almost the exact same category that Following does. It is a damn good movie, led by multiple powerhouse performances from Al Pacino, Hilary Swank, and Robin Williams, who actually plays the villain, and I dug the hell out of that. It also has some standout sequences, the one in particular that was featured extensively in the marketing, which was the fog chase, as well as the final act is also sure to get the blood pressure up. However, the issue is that this is a Nolan movie that feels the least like a Nolan movie. And I can pinpoint the exact reason why. Because this is the only movie in his entire filmography that he did not have a hand in writing at all. Everything else is pretty tip-top, not gonna lie. It features basically everything you've come to expect from Nolan. But the writing here is just weaker than it is in most of his other films, at least in my own humble opinion. But don't take my word for it, please, because I implore you to go and check this one out. It is absolutely worth your time, despite being so low on my own personal list. Number 10, Dunkirk. Well, this one is sure to stir up some controversy. I have been very open and honest and transparent with my thoughts on Dunkirk since it released in 2017. This movie is a technical marvel, one of the most technically impressive movies I or anyone else has ever seen. Whether you're talking about the visuals, the sounds, the sets, the costume design, the practical effects, the cinematography, the composing, all of it is some of the best in the industry. But where my problems with this movie lie are with the writing, because there really isn't any. There is no heart or soul in this movie at all. There is nothing pushing the action forward. There is nothing even resembling a story, which means there is nothing driving that story. There are no memorable characters, nobody that you care for, which is why I often call this the most expensive documentary ever made. Now, I do find it insanely impressive that there are multiple different timelines that we are following. We are following sea, air, and land, and as a chronicling of this event, it is masterful. So in terms of its technical aspects, it is one of the best ever crafted, but in terms of story and characters and emotion, depth, any of that, it is completely lacking. Number 9, Tenet. Oh, Tenet. Boy, oh boy, do I have a love-hate relationship with you. Well, honestly, I can't say that, because there's nothing I really hate about this movie aside from the sound mixing, which is pretty horrendous because the dialogue can often be severely drowned out by all of the chaos ensuing on screen. This is certainly one of, if not Nolan's most complex story. It takes a lot, and multiple rewatches, some YouTube deep dives. Maybe you just made up your own theory and you're running with that and you think you're right, and maybe you are, but really the only people who know what the hell is going on here are the ones that wrote it. And even then, I don't know if they knew what the hell was going on here. That being said though, this movie is damn impressive. I was worried to begin with when Hans Zimmer wasn't coming back to compose this movie after doing Nolan's past few movies with him, but Ludwig Göransson stepped in and the dude crushed it. This is one of my favorite scores in recent memory. Visually, this movie is stunning. There are some extremely cool sequences with vehicles and people and explosions and bullets like going backwards and reverse fights and stuff like that. All sorts of crazy stuff, and the practical effects, I always applaud Nolan for using so much practical effects, or so many. I'm not sure what the actual plural is there. Nevertheless though, like blowing up an actual 747, that shit's crazy. Nobody else is doing that these days. Nolan is. I also have to give a quick shout out before moving on to the next entry to John David Washington, who gave a wonderful lead performance, and this was Robert Pattinson's true return to the big screen. He did this movie and then that basically landed him the role in The Batman, so yeah, Pattinson is back, and this movie definitely deserves a lot of the credit for that. Number 8. Memento. This movie has to be one of the most intricate and delicately constructed plots ever. The way that this story unfolds is unlike anything else I have ever seen. It really is a headache if you're not paying the utmost attention. I mean, you can't look at your phone for a single second, which I guess wasn't as much of a problem when it released back in '02. But if you're watching it for the very first time now, make sure that you are taking mental notes because this one can be hard to follow. However, if you manage to keep up, the payoff at the end of this movie is well worth the headache. Guy Pearce gives a powerful leading performance, and Carrie-Anne Moss isn't far behind him either. I mean, she's great in everything. It's definitely a weird one, folks, but if you haven't checked it out already, I think it's worth your time. Just make sure to go in with an open mind because it is a very rare case of a movie that is just so out there while also being so connected with reality. It's storytelling at some of its finest, but also some of its most complicated. Number 7. Oppenheimer. Honestly, I'm a little disappointed to have this one so low on my list, but it's not for lack of trying, because if you follow my channel, you'll know in my short review that I gave this movie a 9 out of 10. There's just some extremely incredibly tough competition in its way. I've had a few days to sit with this movie now, and after some personal inner reflecting, I do think that this movie has the legs that after multiple rewatches, I can see it inching its way further and further up the list, because this one, it's a rare breed, folks. Most certainly some of the best performances I have seen in recent memory. Cillian Murphy, just give the man the Oscar now. I will be genuinely shocked if he does not at least get a nomination, but right now I'm pulling for him to get the win, and the same goes for Robert Downey Jr. This man is in top form here. The thing is though, there's not a single weak link in this entire cast. In fact, some of these actors, I would say, gave career best performances, and they only had very limited screen time. Nolan just knows how to get the best out of an actor, and that is on full display here, because this movie is extraordinarily performance-driven. Yes, there are some really awesome visuals in here, stuff that will really take your breath away, which I'll touch on in a second, but the performances are the driving force behind this movie, and this has to be one of the most well-crafted casts I have ever seen. Now back to the visuals, like I said, cinematography, Hoytman, just breathtaking stuff here. The IMAX is put to the best possible use that it could have been. You have just wide, sprawling landscapes and some sequences that will never ever leave my memory, at least not anytime soon. In particular, the Trinity sequence that happens, just awesome, mind-blowing shit. And then even the final moments of this movie, the final shots, the final words that our characters utter, they have stuck with me for days now. They are embedded in my brain. This one is spectacular. There are some pacing issues in the last 45 minutes or so. Not all of it, just certain scenes I found dragged just a touch. And some people might not like the way the story is told and the way that it's chopped up, where there's a bit of time and location jumping. The switching between color and black and white might not be everyone's cup of tea, but it honestly didn't bother me at all. In fact, I freaking loved it. Also, Ludwig Göransson once again coming in clutch, delivering a magnificent score that I will be listening to on repeat for the foreseeable future. Seriously, folks, despite this being in number 7, it's Nolan at some of his best. Number 6, Batman Begins. I would argue that this is the greatest superhero origin movie that we have ever seen. There is some stiff competition up there, don't get me wrong, but everything about this movie I simply adore, except the only thing I don't like about this movie, and I really don't like it as a hardcore Batman fan, and that is the hand-to-hand combat in here. It is quick cutty, it is shaky cam, and it's not good. You can never tell what's going on in the fight scenes, which is unfortunate. Everything else, though, top tier. The performances are stellar. Christian Bale proved the doubters wrong almost immediately and unanimously with his portrayal of Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. Cillian Murphy mentioning the man once again because he was also spectacular as Scarecrow. I know that there is some controversy with Liam Neeson's character as he plays Ra's al Ghul, a whitewashed version, and I definitely do want to acknowledge that, but that doesn't take away from the fact that the dude gave a damn good performance. This is Batman like we had never seen him. Gone are the days of the campy, whimsical, over-the-topness of the Burton Schumacher universes. No, this is a Batman that is grounded in our reality, and it was delivered to us in superb fashion. Number 5, The Prestige. The craziest thing to me about this movie is the fact that so many people have not seen this movie. I cannot count the number of people that I have said, you have to watch The Prestige, have you ever seen The Prestige? And they don't even know what I'm talking about. It's not that they haven't seen it, it's that they don't even know it exists. Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman, Scarlett Johansson, Michael Caine, and really the rest of the cast are all at the top of their game, and they deliver A+++ performances. The movie is filled with clever twists and turns that always had me guessing, in a very unique story that sees two magicians trading blows, going back and forth, sabotaging each other's careers, once friends, now mortal enemies, and every single second of this movie sells you on that because that is what is carrying this flick. So aside from the performances, the always pleasing visuals that Nolan is sure to deliver, and the fun and dynamic back and forth between our magicians, this movie has arguably one of the most jaw-dropping finales I have ever seen. I mean, I don't want to say any details at all or even hint at what happens in the last few minutes of this movie, because if you haven't seen it, it's best just to go in with fresh eyes and an open mind, because I promise it is going to blow you away. Number 4, The Dark Knight Rises. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because this is one of those rankings where I'm kind of just dropping it in and running away, especially after saying Dunkirk is at the number 10 spot, which was a hot take on its own. Putting The Dark Knight Rises in number 4 to some people is also an extremely hot take. It breaks my heart every time I see a Nolan or a Batman ranking and see The Dark Knight Rises way at the bottom, because I think that this is an epic, satisfying conclusion. Yes, I did use those two descriptors, epic and satisfying, and I will stand by them until the day that I die. This movie for me is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece and has a few little flaws. Yes, I get the scene where like Talia al Ghul dies is a little goofy, and there's some things here and there plot-wise that maybe might be a little plot hole-ish and stuff like that, but honestly, the rest of the movie is so strong, it just completely erases away those flaws. This movie to me has always been and will forever remain a masterclass in every sense of the word. Number 3, Inception. Number 2 and 3 are interchangeable. You ask me today, I say Inception. You ask me tomorrow, I say the next one. And that's because I love them both equally. Numbers 4, 3, 2, and 1 are all 10 out of 10s for me, and number 3, 2, and 1 are all in my top 10 of all time. From the cast to the visuals, once again going back to those practical effects like actually just building a rotating hallway, crazy chase scenes, epic firefights, visual effects that are sure to put your brain into knots, and one of movie history's most controversial and memorable endings of all time. A question that to this very day, Nolan will not definitively answer. He even most recently just readdressed it and said that it doesn't matter because Leo's character just doesn't care anymore. So that leaves the question still open-ended. Theories and conspiracies pop up every single day despite this movie being over a decade old. Now that, folks, is what I call leaving an impact. Number 2, Interstellar. Once again, I want to reiterate, you ask me today, I say Interstellar, Inception. You ask me tomorrow, I might say Inception, Interstellar. The two are interchangeable. I love them both equally. The reason I put Interstellar in number 2 today is because I feel like there are moments in this movie that have lasted with me longer. Now, I do understand the common complaint that, like, love is the missing factor and stuff, being a bit goofy, but I also see where Nolan was coming from with it, and I feel that the explanation is satisfying enough. But where this movie really shines is just the fact that it is real theoretical science, showcased in a way unlike anything I have ever seen before. You're talking about the black hole sequence, you're talking about the last act where time is like a fourth dimension, talking about relativity, space exploration, aging. It deals with a lot of themes like love and loss and grief. There are so many moments in here that make me tear up every single time, and I think this is Nolan's piece of work that really expanded and explored my imagination more than any other. I've always been so fascinated and equally as terrified of space, so the fact that this movie just dove so deep into it, unlike any movie I'd really seen previously, this movie uses real theoretical science to explain everything, and that to me has just always been so damn interesting. Number 1, The Dark Knight. I know, surprise, surprise, right? This is possibly the most basic bitch answer I could have ever given, and I could not care less. The Dark Knight is my second, sometimes considered to be my favorite movie of all time. I simply love every single aspect with this movie. I don't have a single flaw with it. With the past couple, I have little flaws that I just kind of ignore or love everything else so much that it kind of just glosses over the flaws. I don't have a single flaw with The Dark Knight. Christian Bale, I think, doesn't get enough credit because I think he was equally as good as Heath Ledger, but yes, Heath Ledger does give one of the best performances ever put to our screens. There are so many just beautifully chaotic sequences in here, like the truck flip, and so many just morally conflicting segments like what to do with the ferries. The hospital blowing up is one that will always stick in my mind. Aaron Eckhart's Harvey Dent also does not get enough credit, nor does Michael Caine's Alfred, or Maggie Gyllenhaal's Rachel, or Gary Oldman's Jim Gordon. Everyone outside of Heath Ledger does not get enough credit for what they gave to this movie, including Nolan and his direction in hand in writing. This movie is a masterpiece through and through. It is one of the highest rated movies of all time for a damn good reason. And I know it's become popular in some circles to hate on this movie and be like, oh, surprise, surprise, you know, number 1, The Dark Knight, could have saw that one coming, could have guessed that, blah, blah, blah. This is one of the best movies ever made, and I'm gonna call it as I see it. And to this very day, it remains my favorite bit of Nolan's work. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my ranking. While you're at it, don't forget to let me know how you would have ranked all 12 of director Christopher Nolan's movies. If you're a movie lover whatsoever, then my channel is the place to be for you. Be it rankings like this one, top 10 videos, tier videos, versus videos, I have it all, and so much more on the way, folks. Seriously, we got some big plans cooking up behind the scenes, and we have now surpassed 900 videos on the channel for you to enjoy. So if you enjoyed this particular video, then be sure to hit that thumbs up button, and if any of that sounds like it's right for you and you want to see more from me, then smash that subscribe button right now. While you're at it, don't forget to ring that little bell icon, that way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, stay safe, thank you so much for watching, and that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you, and while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.